if you want to be a good salesman, you do not talk about the bells and whistles and the features of the product so much as the benefits that the customer gets out of this. Right? So you may want to list the features because that will help that person backwards rationalize an emotional decision to purchase. But the fact is that someone buys because they feel that this will be of benefit to them. This is really important to note. Why do women have sex with men? Not out of charity. Yeah, or maybe very occasionally, as in Jamie's case, as he mentioned yesterday. Yeah, very occasionally, but it's not, that's a fairly hollow victory and doesn't happen very often. Women have sex with men because it's good for them. They do it out of purely self-interested reasons. Yeah? So, if you don't know what she wants and you can't give it to her, then you can't get laid. Can you see how important that is? And most guys, when they're getting into this, because they're so centered on, well, what's going on for me, my fears, my anxieties, and then what do I want, and how do I let her know that, and all this stuff. And then over here, we've got this sort of blurry object of a woman where we're trying to engage and get her. And so many times we forget, well, she's over here with a whole set of desires and also her own fears and insecurities that is equally important to this mix. And a great seducer is a man who has a far better understanding than the average man as to what it is that a woman wants out of a man. And then he's able to deliver it to her. And then seduction becomes fucking simple. Yeah? Because the mystery is because if we've been told, okay, women want a man who's a leader, and we try and lead, and you're like, well, that's what women want, right? And then it doesn't seem to have an effect, then we're lost in the dark. Because we don't understand what it is about leadership that is attractive to a woman. What she gets out of being with a leader is far more important to know than the idea of tugging at her because isn't that leadership. Yeah. Some years ago, I was in bed with the first incredibly attractive woman I'd ever been with. The first woman that was a proper professional model. And keep in mind one thing, guys, when you're talking to girls in clubs and they say, I'm a model, most girls are not models who say this. Most girls have done some modeling. There's a difference between a girl who did some modeling and a girl who is flown around the world and paid to be beautiful. Yeah? So ask them that. It's a good question because it'll mess them up a little bit. She's like, yeah, I'm a model. And you're like, so you've done some modeling, have you? Yeah. So, and which agency do you work for? And they're like, I did some modeling once. You're like, okay, that's nice. That's nice. But this is the first girl I'd been with who was a proper flown around the world, serious, like make your knees shake kind of model. And at that time, as Jamie will attest, I was living in a shitty terrace house in Northcote. And I made my income by doing massage at the time, so I used to do 1 or 2 or 3 massages a week, which paid the bills. And I played in a highly unmarketable daggy funk band, and I wasn't very well dressed. And I was just like, in terms of like value, I didn't really have much. Yeah, I just did that, and then I went out and learned about women, and did kung fu and various other things. And I managed to get this spectacularly beautiful Russian model into my bedroom and with me. And I remember we were lying in bed one day, and her phone rings, and she answered it because she was a little bit rude, which I think is a bit rude, really, isn't it? To answer the phone in bed with your lover. Anyway, she did. And on the other end of the phone was this guy. And he's like, hi, Irina, how are you? So, yes. And she's like, yes, what do you want? So this is Thomas, and she told me about this guy. This guy was the man who owned her modelling agency. He was an ex-model himself. He was at that time about 35 and still very fucking attractive. He was a millionaire. Yeah? He had a big shiny car. This guy, in terms of value, was kicking my ass. Yeah? Because women want a man who's like high value, right? They want a man who's got heaps of status, right? Why? Because they want a man who's got high status. Let's think about why. And so this guy called her up, and he's like, oh, so Irina, yeah, so I've booked us the table at that best restaurant in fucking Melbourne, whichever Michelin star one. So, yeah, so I'd like to meet you tonight. And she said, I told you, I don't like a restaurant. And she told me, at one stage I'd suggested we go out to dinner, and she said, I don't like a restaurant. I like to cook at home. So after that, I called her up, and this is how we eventually slept together the first time. I called her up and I said, do you like lasagna, Irina? She said, yes. I said, I'm going to bring the ingredients over and we'll cook it. Okay, bring. Yes? And that's what I love about Russians. It's just straight to the point. And so I did, bring, quickly, yeah? And we cooked and then we had sex, and I was a bit scared, but it worked. So she told this guy as well, I don't like restaurant, for whatever reason. And he hadn't heard that. He knew expensive restaurant is what gets girls into bed. And so he's trying to say, and she's like, I don't like. He said, no, look, and he said, listen, Irina. And I could hear him on the phone. I'm just lying there. This is great. Listen, Irina, I'm a very successful man, and I can give you anything that you want. So I think you just need to give me a chance. And she says, call me when you have enough money to buy a country. Goodbye. And hangs up on him. Yeah? So, everyone's like, okay, I'm going to have to start saving. Yeah? Because he was very wrong. He said, I can give you anything you want. And yet, which, I mean, materially he could, and status, and, and parties and whatever else, and cocaine and all these things that girls like, right? Shoes and handbags and Gucci things and that. But yet she was in bed with the broke hippie musician. Because actually, I could give her something that he definitely couldn't, and no other man ever had. This is actually a very lonely woman. And I mentioned this yesterday in terms of, if you are a professional model, often your life is really fucking lonely. I remember talking to this model in New York, that was this year, it's been a weird year, and I was just talking to her, because I always talk to very beautiful women about their experience, because I want to understand what it's like, and Jamie talked about this yesterday. It's a very bizarre existence, where because of your genetics, suddenly you're given all this stuff, but at the same time there's a heavy price for that. Women don't want to be friends with you. You are a threat to their relationships. And this girl said to me in New York, she said, a lot of the girls here actually become lesbians or just end up getting together with girls. She's talking about the models who lived in these model houses where they all stay whilst they're coming into New York to do shoots. And I said, what? I said, well, no, that sounds nice, but I'm like, why is that? She says they can't find men and they start to think that guys don't like them. And I'm like, the most coveted, attractive women in the world aren't finding men? Are you bullshitting me? She's like, no. She said, look, because you'll be in this scene with this guy, like in a photo shoot, having this raw sexual attraction, whatever, and she said 90% of the guys in those shoots are gay. And then the moment that the camera turns off, the girl's like got all these feelings, and he's like, whatever, honey, and off she goes. And most of the guys in like the makeup and whatever else, the guys that she has day-to-day dealings with are often gay. And it's a really isolating world. And so the hottest women in the world were turning to having lesbian relationships because they couldn't find men. Fucked up. And every other guy is a walk on the street going, oh, I could never get a girl like that. Yeah, I guess she's like got 50 guys after her. Yeah? Because they didn't go up and find out what that experience is like for a woman. I was talking to a girl last night. I went out, shouldn't have gone out, did go out. And she was not my type, okay? So I'm into Slavic, like deathly white chicks with long dark hair. But this was a good, honest, good-looking Australian girl, okay? She was 30, she was blonde, she was, had a nice body, she was pretty. The kind of girl that most guys in Australia would go, yeah, like she's a sexy girl and I would definitely go to bed with her. And I was just having a chat with her and I could tell she was interested and I wasn't interested, but I was, trying to be nice and chat to her. And I was just asking her about her love life. And she said, and I said, oh, well, she was recently single. And I said, oh, okay, so, well, you got some dates coming up or whatever. She's, giving me like, come on, can we have a date? I'm like, I'm just, might be gay, just interested in your love life. And she said, in my life, if I've ever wanted a man, I've had to go up and talk to him. And I said, well, what do you mean? I mean, guys come talk to you. And she's like, I've never had a man come and talk to me. This girl was 30 and she was pretty, like she was a hot chick. And she had never had a man come up and approach her in her life. Yeah? And so this poor girl had to, any time she wanted to have an interaction with a man, she had to be the one to go, fuck, all right, well, I'm going to have to do it. Hi there, how are you? Come on, you fucking idiots. Will someone please have sex with me? That's tragic. And that's all your fault. Yeah? And there's this ridiculous divide where men and women are not getting together because each one of them thinks the other one doesn't like them or has so much of the other that they don't need them or whatever else. And the moment you start to go and talk to women and actually find out what's going on for them, you'll discover that all these myths and all these fears that you've been carrying around as precious and real start to dissolve. And you'll start to discover that what women want is not necessarily handbags and cocaine and high heels and VIP tables and all that shit. They want something else. They want a depth of connection. They want to be listened to. They want to feel special. Things that I'll talk about in more depth right now. Now, in the absence of a deep connection and a great sexual chemistry and all these other things, women will take the handbag. Yeah? Sure, I mean, if you own a nightclub, you can get chicks. You know, if you splash money around, you know, some women will take that opportunity. Yeah? But then they will be taken off you by a guy like me, who doesn't have any of that, but offers something that's far more important. Remember I talked to you guys yesterday about a sense of entitlement, and in terms of having worthiness with women, you may think that you need X amount of dollars and all that kind of stuff, but really, once you learn to have presence and connect with somebody and make them feel alive and special, you have a currency that's far more valuable than any of that other material bullshit.